Geared Up North, your compass in the wilderness. We're passionate outdoorsmen turned gear gurus on a mission to equip you with tools, insights, and camaraderie to conquer the great outdoors. From North America's hunting fields and icy waterways, join us for gear reviews, tips, and lessons learned. Welcome to Geared Up North.
Oh! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Geared Up North. This is a fun episode for us because we have two gentlemen that work for Mobile Hunters Expo, and we have Tyler and Martin. Martin's doing double time here, as obviously he's a co-founding member of Geared Up North, but he's been with Mobile Hunters Expo now for at least 2 years, and both these guys just got done helping with the Southern and Midwestern shows. And we're just trying to get their opinions, their takeaways, insights, what's coming down the pipe. As this show has experienced tremendous growth in the mobile and saddle hunting world. So we are super pumped about that. And admittedly, it was kind of an inspiration for us to even do this whole channel and this brand anyway. So let's get started. We're going to jump in with segment one, the Mobile Hunters Expo. What is it all about? Tyler, we're going to start with you, man. Who is this for? Why did it happen? What can people take away from it? If people aren't aware of it, what do you want them to know about this?
Yeah. So I've had the pleasure to be around it for basically 5 years. I'd say almost since its inception. Obviously mobile hunting's kind of become more mainstream as of the last handful of years, and the big reason everything kind of got rolling, sort of like a brief, I guess, origin story, if you want to look at it that way. There was a handful of us that were part of a Facebook page, and a lot of new companies were kind of hitting the ground. The little small mom and pop places that had started making gear in different garages and shops across the country. And a lot of us had different setups with different stuff and wanted to try out everybody's gear. That was like the biggest downfall, I think, to the mobile hunting world when companies started popping up all over the place, was that you really had to trial by error, order stuff, get it in, decide whether or not you liked it, hopefully try and sell it as close to market value as you got it for secondhand on Facebook and the forums and whatnot, and pray it went well. And so we all got together, kind of started talking about like, hey, we want to try each other's setups. We want to mess with other people's gear, see if it's something we like or don't like, and kind of just thought like, man, there's probably more people locally in Ohio that want to do the same. And Christopher Leppert was at the helm of this. He just had an idea. It was like, dude, let's do a little like get together show type of thing. And I think it was like with 3 weeks time, we found a little venue at a fairground, got a building space, reached out to as many companies as we could, got them in, and then everybody just kind of showed up. And it was kind of like bring your own gear, throw it on a pole, teach people about it and see. I did that at the time. Out of all the people that were showing up, I was the only person with a Latitude saddle. I think I had their original method at the time. And Chris is like, hey, if you can bring it, show some people. That was like the first 2-panel saddle. And so showed up. I was supposed to be there for 3 hours, told my wife like, hey, I'll be back, by dinner. And 9 hours later, I rolled through the door at like 11 o'clock at night. Because, obviously I was in my wheelhouse, so to speak. And loved everything about it. Chris asked me to be part of the team, and fast forward to now, I mean, it's really for anybody from a mobile hunting standpoint. Even honestly, I'd even say people who aren't part of mobile hunting yet but are curious about it. It is, for lack of better terms, one of the safest places you can come and just ask questions and, be, not to like downplay it, but like be the dumbest guy in the room and not feel judged for it or not feel berated for it. And, if you want to try a piece of gear, there's plenty of opportunity to do it. There's experts there who can help you with it. And then even somebody who's super seasoned with it all, there's a lot of people showing up, still learning stuff, if not from a gear perspective, from a tip and trick standpoint and tactics. The seminars and stuff that we've been putting on with the people coming in with a lot of knowledge, like, Bobby Worthington spoke in the Southern show and the Ohio show. We had I think it was Bronson Strickland, who works with the MSU Deer Labs studies, and the amount of sheer knowledge just from that perspective. Even if you're not interested in the gear itself, if you're just interested in learning about deer and becoming a better deer hunter, it's all encompassing, and that's really why
Yeah,
it was made.
that's fantastic. So the core mission and intention from and I apologize, I have not been to one, but I feel like I'm living through them via Martin. As ironically, my journey into saddle hunting was a very similar tone by him treating me the same way, being the dumbest guy in the room, but wanting a buddy to go with, but allowing me to try his stuff in his front yard in his tree when all of his neighbors are judging us, but
Mhm.
it's fun and it's challenging. So that's awesome. And I will eventually make my way out to one. This is because it keeps climbing up our ladder of importance and all the things we're doing. But like, it sounds like you guys, the goal is just you're doubling down on what you did day one. Is that accurate?
Yeah. It's really, the core mission has stayed the same throughout the entire, of all the shows that we've done. A couple of years we expanded out to 3, trimmed back to 2, messed around with different venues and stuff, and really just through all of it, we've still kept that core mission the same of just, like I know we talk about it on the podcast, like our goal and mission is to help you become a better hunter. And that's
Mm-hmm.
everything from the gear to the tactics to becoming more efficient with either the equipment you're using or the way you're accessing, or even becoming efficient with summer scouting. I know Chris and I are huge on that, and Josh Luck is huge on that, because we're all dads and we all have jobs and we all get pulled 50 directions, so we don't have the luxuries of when we were 2021 with no wife, no kids, and every weekend we could go run through the woods like madmen. So we've done our best to just hold true to that, and truly create like a camaraderie when you come in the door, where we don't care if you're killing tomorrow's trophies today, or if you're Pierce Moore dropping 190-inch bucks out of their bed.
Yeah,
Like, we are here to help and trade tips and tactics with anybody.
I love that. I won't go too far down this rabbit hole, I promise. But on previous podcasts, I grew up gun hunting and then got out of it, and then was out of it for years, working for corporate America, and then creating my own companies. And it was guys like Martin and a couple of our friends that kind of encouraged me to get back into it. And at that point, I kind of tried with tents and other climbers and just never had felt comfortable like something was right, whether it was public or private land, different environments. And then he's like, dude, you got to try this out. Like, this will work anywhere.
You should
I'd
talk
heard other
about
people
you should talk
mention it.
about you should talk about your original mobile setup with your tent on the front of your backpack.
Yeah, it was just some goofy little like Gander Mountain bag, but it had the clips on it, and it was like the little wireframe tents, and I figured out a way to fold it in such that I could get it down. So it was like a circle. So I looked like, an old Spartan warrior with like the shield on your chest, bag on the back, and I'd waddle through the woods and set that thing up. I mean, because I didn't know any better, right? So you're just experimenting, and I've do a lot of that stuff in digital marketing where you just like try it, see if it works. And I knew I hated using climbers. So it wasn't until I ran into Martin. He's like, dude, you are trying way too hard. Like, you got to try out saddle hunting.
I
Like,
did. I kind of
it'll be
laughed
a
at him.
much
I'm like,
better
dude, are you
experience.
I laughed at him a little bit. I was like, dude, are you trying to go like sledding or skiing? Are you trying to hunt here? What are you doing?
Yep. So, to some degree, like confidence and humility, but then, like you said, you kind of let everyone get their rounds on you, and then you join the crew, right? You're now part of the ranks, and that's kind of the experience I've had with it, and it's been awesome. And you're absolutely right. Like, this space in hunting needed Mobile's Hunter Expo, and people that support it and want to advocate for it, because not all of us were born with trust funds and hundreds of acres and can just set up blinds everywhere, right? So it's like, and even if you had it, Martin's family has a lot of acres up northern Wisconsin, and even then, he took down a lot of his stands. Like, his rule is you have to be a mobile hunter because he wants to have minimal impact on the land. So there's people who do that too. So I just think, like, if you're going to invest in one setup, this I'll call it a greater genre. I mean, we always are careful of how we promote it with photos and content we do, mobile hunting versus exclusively saddle hunting, right? Like, we have other friends that we would call mobile hunters not using a saddle, but want to make sure we articulate it correctly. But nonetheless, right, just you're bringing out what you brought in, kind of a concept.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Martin, if you didn't have anything, I was going to ask you the next question. That was, maybe you could kick off covering some of the vendors, like who has been there and who was there for these shows. And who is the ideal vendor for such an event?
I mean, there were so many vendors. I mean, you could just literally go through the list because I think there was 45 or 50 at the Southern show and probably 30 to 40 at the Midwestern show. I mean, it's all over the board. You could get anything from like the Midwestern show where you had sled dog, which was like a pull behind cart that you could either do by hand or hook up behind an e-bike. Or if you were looking for like a new set of sticks, Timber Ninja had their C2 sticks, which Tyler could probably attest for, that are pretty legit and they're reasonably priced for a carbon stick. I mean, you got the kunai platform from Timber Ninja. I mean, Wildline Ropes was pretty much busy for both shows. It wasn't completely swamped like the Southern show, but even in the Midwestern show, he was probably still one of the busier booths with only just being him and his wife. And then you still have the big hitters like Tethered, Cruiser, Latitude, all over the board. I mean, to me, I think the vendors are cool because everybody changes and there's always something new or different. I mean, like, how often you go to a outdoor expo show and you actually get like a sauce or seasoning or dressing company like Mullins we had at both shows, but both of the guys that were working the booth also hunt. So you were able to go up to them and talk to them and discuss with, okay, what is this good with? Is this good with like geese? Is this good with venison? Can I do this on fish? And the fact that they're actually members of the Mobile Hunter group on Facebook is cool, so that you can kind of get the best of both worlds. You can actually like try stuff, but you can actually get their own life experience on what works, what doesn't. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, there's so many different cool things and innovative things that are different. And I think the cool part too, aside from the vendors, is actually speaking with people and just figuring out their little nuances that they do with their gear. I mean, Justin finally got it up on his website, but he's got a system where it's a completely metal free tether, or not tether, rappel setup. So even with his double soft shackle, you can then remove your Notch V3 Quickie or any quick link at the top end of your rappel line to now be completely metal free, minus doing a Munster hitch off of a lineman's belt to rappel down a tree. So
Nice.
now you literally cut, like, not that weight's a big deal to me, but to be able to remove 3 or 4 pieces of metal, which I normally ting on the way up on a one stick climb, you've now removed 3 or 4 chances of pretty much that one opportunity you had. You've now greatened or increased your odds of success.
Yeah. Sorry, hearing you talk about just the way you articulated all the vendors and all the names. 2 questions. You guys can both answer this however you like. But one of them is innovation. And Tyler, I apologize, I didn't do the math to know how long you were involved, but Martin pre-show mentioned that you kind of one of the original guys, been there from the beginning. And Martin's been, what are you, in year 7 of saddle hunting, but year 2 of
year two at the show. A little
So
backstory. I was not part of the original OGs, but they posted in the Mobile Hunter Facebook page, I forget when it was, and pretty much said fill out a resume on what you've done or what you've what's your mobile setup, and then some photos of some deer that you've harvested, and then you might get a response. Well, I got a response saying that I was not originally selected. And I'm like, okay, well, that's perfectly fine, understandable, because there was a lot of people and a lot of bodies. Well, I didn't respond to that email. Well, a week later, they said, hey, if you'd still like to work the Michigan show, we're still looking for people, which turned into me showing up and doing that. And then had a great experience there. And they need more people to work the PA show, which turned into me jumping on a plane and going, because I'm the single guy with a dog and no responsibility and a job.
Yeah. You're the madman walking through the woods all weekend long.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I run a small business, so I can't do that all the time as much as I would like to.
Well, my question was, since you guys, I was trying to establish just, like that you guys, not only with the show, but just, you have several years under your belt in saddle hunting. I'm entering year 3. So like you guys, would be coach and mentors even to someone like myself. So really, I guess my question is innovation. Out of all the vendors that even were there up to this year's show, just talk a little bit about like what products were like and what these vendors are bringing to the table, and kind of how it's morphed over the years to where we're at now. Because like you said, there's mom and pops starting out like one man shows trying to establish themselves, all the way to the giants now, which no one starts off as a giant. So I'm very
Right.
curious, not only in the brands that have been buying everything up, but also the evolution of the products every year that you kind of see. So maybe I know that's a really big question, but maybe just your own opinions on what you see over the years as that's been growing. So maybe Tyler, go first.
Yeah. So I think I'm probably right there with you, Martin. I think I'm about 7 years from a saddle hunting perspective. I used to be one of those guys running a climber around, and I got into it because I went and I hunted hill country in southeastern Ohio, and I remember looking at a topography map and just thinking to myself, like, I'm not carrying 25 pounds of steel or aluminum for that matter through these hills. And I Googled lightweight hunting methods, saddle hunting popped up. I dove down to a couple rabbit holes, and innovation wise, like at the time, I think when I very first dipped my toes in it, the lightest stick on the market was like 2 pounds. I want to say they were like the OG Lone Wolf sticks, not your custom gear sticks, like your OG Lone Wolf brand, almost 3 foot long, single steps off either side is what a lot of
Yep.
people were
With
using.
windshield
And
wipers,
yeah,
windshield
like,
wipers, you could flip it left and right on either side, depending on how you wanted to climb or ascend.
yeah, and like what was interesting is, it started off where like people just took a lot of that gear and modded it to what they wanted. Like if they wanted
Yeah.
lighter weight, they would cut the stick in half. If they wanted a smaller platform, they would take, a hang on seat and rig it up to be able to stand on it or something. And, um, you know, flash forward a couple years, like I think Tethered was really probably the first company that that crushed marketing, got everything mainstream, threw it on the internet, and really got it in the public's eye pretty heavily, and did well with it to the point where it started to kind of gain some traction. And you had a lot of people making saddles, in their garage that had some sewing machines and systems set up, and they weren't horrible, but even some of the people I talked to this weekend that had the very first tethered saddle that was made, they were sitting in saddles this weekend that were tethered saddles that are 5 years newer, and the technology's changed, and people have learned where pressure points are and where different aspects of that are, and like they've adapted and modified a lot of that stuff, and changed it to where like people would come in, they'd be like, yeah, I've been hunting out a saddle for 5, 6 years. I don't really know that I want a new one, but I wanted to sit in it just in case. And so they throw it on, they climb on one of the demo poles, and as soon as they sit back in it, they're like, oh my God, this is night and day compared to what I have at home. Like the comfort's way better. It's lighter, it's more packed, and that was across the board too. Like sticks now, your lightest stick on market is like floating right around a pound, and you've got like Martin was saying, you got carbon fiber with Timber Ninja. You've got, I think, titanium, aluminum combinations with Tethered and their one stick. That in and of itself, the whole concept of one sticking, where people went from 4 to 6 sticks to adding aiders, and then people went from aiders on sticks to, well, let's just use one stick with an aider and figure out how to use that multiple times. And Arsenal right now is crushing the game with their new one stick that they came out this year with. And it's wild to sit back and think about, because, I started hunting with a 12-pound aluminum Hawk hang on and 4 of their sticks. And without adding a pack and gear, I think I was looking at 20 pounds, 21 pounds. And then I went to their climber that was just the same amount of weight, but it packed a little bit nicer. And then I still to this day, I remember the first time that like I picked up a tethered one stick when I ordered a 3-pack in the mail when they dropped. And I remember opening the box and picking one of them up, and just like, there's just this little like click that happens in your brain where you're like, oh my God, like what is this? It seems almost like the
That's not going to
technology
hold
in
me.
mobile. Yeah, it's like, it seems like the
This is
technology
not
in mobile
real. This
hunting
can't
is,
happen. This is fake.
no, it's like a sci-fi movie concept. Like, and it almost
Yeah.
feels like the technology in mobile hunting gear is moving almost as fast as just like the advancements in technology with, phones and computers and all that kind of stuff. Like every year, I
Yeah.
think, everything's pretty universal or obsolete. I can't think they're going to improve this. And then you show up to an event and Timber Ninja drops the kunai platform, and you're like, what in the world, like what medieval science brain did that come out of, that you just, designed this thing? And everybody that touched it had nothing but raving reviews to say about it. And
Oh yeah.
Again, it's just hand over fist.
It's refreshing. I was at several other shows like ICAST and then a waterfowl hunter show, and people might tweak a product here and there, but they're not. I wouldn't call that innovation. It's like another SKU. Like there's actually legit brand new things being developed in this space yet, and it's really refreshing in the outdoor space where it's not like it's just a rod that has a different color. Well, that's not innovative. Like this is actually a new thing that like cuts weight, or it's a whole new material, or it's another way to climb that hasn't been invented yet. And like these guys are, I would love. I mean, Martin's more into this than I am, but even then, I still find it fascinating. Like, what's the inspiration to some of these product designers? I know you could probably channel the rock climbers. We're very rope heavy. Linemen. Stuff like that, where there might be people who are already using rope systems, but even then, there's still stuff that we're using that no one else is using. That's like, I have no idea where they're coming up with these things, but it's pretty clever. Actually, even listening to Martin too, like guys like yourself that have 7 years and where you've tried so many different brands, you kind of know this is cool, but it'd be cooler if it did this. Well, you would have never thought of that if you hadn't gotten boots or hands on it, kind of a thing. I mean, all of my gear, my first gear was all Martin's used stuff, and I still have some of his hand-me-downs. But like, and everyone told me, and you guys are all right. And I say the same thing now to people, like once you start, you will never stop tinkering and tweaking and making fine adjustments. So watching Martin 7 years in, I'm like, he's going to stop one of these days. I'm like, no, because there's always something new coming out to make it better and better,
It's so funny you talk about that, because I literally was going to shoot Justin a message about trying to pick up his rappel setup.
Yeah.
I literally was in the point where like I didn't think I was going to add anything to my setup this year, and then I showed up and Justin's like, "Hey," he's like, "come check out this this tether I've got with this WLR hitch." And I was like, "Oh, I already got one, but yeah, I'll check it out." And I'm looking at it and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, the hitch is shorter. I'm going to be closer to the tree. It adjusts so much easier." I ended up going back the second day and I was like, "All right, just here, take the card, give me the hitch, give me the rope. It's fine. I'll add it."
100%. I mean, there's an aspect too where it's like, if it's the space I'm playing and I want to help businesses out, whether that's with money or services or whatever they're interested in, the bartering factor is alive and well in the space too. But at least in my experience, but the other part too is like, if I hunt on whatever, some public near my house, I know I'm not going to need everything. If I go up by Martin's land, yeah, then you need all your premium lightest stuff. You're going to be hiking for miles, and these are what, sub 2,000 foot hills and 300 some acres. Like you're in it for the long haul kind of a thing. So then you want all that stuff. So, and again, I'm not buying multiple versions of it, right? So like, I think that's the other beautiful thing. It's not like I have to have multiple stand setups, multiple ladder stands. It's one rig, right? So you can be a little modular for early season, late season, which is kind of where I started swapping out even, oh gosh, it's the new Latitude pouches versus the tethered pouches. Like I call them the liver pouches. They're like hip to butt cheek kind of a thing. The concept was to not have a bag in early season, put everything in there. But then my saddle was falling down, right? So then you kind of tweak and make adjustments, and we're dialed in now. But it's fun to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, anything that gets me behind the computer is what Martin and I always say. The get our hands and then recharge in the woods a little bit. The other question I had with vendors was Midwest versus South, and obviously Southern brands versus Northern brands. Do you find in the South that more of the audience flocks to the Southern companies for support versus when you're up back in the North? I'm just curious because like Latitude hired a guy from your guy from Texas, TX5 guy, right? So like you've got that crossover. I think Wildline and some of these guys are down in the South a little bit more. Martin's favorite camo is North the Carolinas, all that stuff. So it's with Osseo gear. So I don't know if you even see it or recognize it. I'm just genuinely curious if there's, being that you're in completely different environments with how people hunt and their terrain, let alone just how people approach hunting. I was just curious if you would see a division in who they support and buying habits, kind of a thing.
No.
Just everyone does what they do.
No, because I think the biggest thing with these shows is it's just more of the atmosphere and the environment that it is. Like Tyler was pointing out before, is you might like, even for us, so me and Tyler were, you could call, we were the people that were working the demo polls, would be answering questions on products or just discussing stuff with people, or even just swapping gear stories on like success stories we had or even failures. But the cool thing is we're unbiased as a staff. So for us, I think the biggest thing, to your point with the north south thing, I think the biggest thing in any of these shows, no matter where it is, if it ends up being in Kansas or Missouri in a few years, or if it kind of sticks where it's at in Ohio or Georgia, I think the biggest thing is just having the atmosphere to be able to be either the uneducated person or the educated person in the room to make sure that you're buying that. Like, if you're the seasoned saddle hunter or mobile hunter and you've only got like one or two issues with your setup, you could easily find one of the people on the staff and ask a question. And even if they don't know, you've got 5 or 6 other people on staff that like to Tyler's point, we got a lot of guys that one stick. Well, then we got a bunch of guys that prefer to hybrid hunt. We got a lot of guys that just only hunt from a hang on stand.
Yeah.
So the ability to be able to just kind of have that unbiased opinion and be able to answer questions, whatever question might pop up, and know that you're not going to try and you're not going to get sold something because it's just for profit or we're getting like a 10% cut on the sale. You're getting unbiased advice on what's going to actually help you become more efficient.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. I was just genuinely curious because oh, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I'd say we don't see a difference in terms of what vendors get support based on region. The one thing I will say though is, and this can be more for people who are interested in attending shows. You do get a difference in what vendors are at the shows based on regions because, like you said, your big hitters that can afford to run, that like your Latitudes, your Tethers, XOP, Cruiser, like Buzzard Roost, a lot of those guys, they have a trade show season and they build their summers off of that, where they're bouncing all around the United States and different places going to shows. But then you're going to have your little, your one-off guys, your startups, your guys that are really just taking the reins and trying to do it all themselves. And those are the ones that you might only see at one show a year because of just the financial burden as a startup or a new company that's fairly young, trying to figure out like, hey, how do I get my name out there? What's the best show I can get to that I'm going to get the most eye? Like this was really cool. We had a company at the Northern show who was not at the Southern show or Midwestern show up in Ohio, and they did prepackaged meals, and they weren't dehydrated. Like I know we had Mamu's Kitchen, I think came to North or to Midwestern and Southern, and and so they do dehydrated, meals where you can buy it, heat up water, dump it in there. They're super delicious. They're phenomenal. But we also had a company up here that was more local to the show in Ohio, and they do like a prepackaged bag meal, and it's like we had bison stew and bison chili, a lentil chili, a couple different vegetarian options. They're working on little like quick energy packs that are all natural ingredients that don't have a lot of junk and garbage in them. And they're one of those smaller companies. Like I can't even find a Facebook page for them. Been looking since I left the show.
You have Instagram, I know that.
They do? Oh, thank God. Because I'm like, I had the bison
We'll give
stew
them a plug.
one
We'll
time.
find them.
Oh man, I know the city they live in, so I'm sure I could contact Chris and be like, dude, what's their phone number? Because the bison stew is phenomenal, and even to things like that, right? Like you talk about, like Martin, you mentioned like the show moving out west. Like I feel like those kind of vendors would probably have a little bit more success once they get out that direction, because a lot of your mobile hunting is, backcountry hikes and camps and set up, tents and all that kind of stuff. But there are a good amount of core guys here in the States, or here in the more eastern part of the States, that, when November hits and they're wanting an all day sit, like I know tons of hunters that are carrying a jet boil into the woods with them so that midday they can drop down, set up a jet boil and cook some food midday when it's cold out and they want to get, a little burst for the second half. And again, when you talk about like variety of vendors, like it's a perfect space for that, because you have the guys that want to be mobile and they want to bounce around and they want to do that and pack it in, and be able to run that. And that's another cool dynamic of that. So I'd say in terms of support, you do have your little like loyal groups, right? That, they know the guy from the South, so they're going to support the guy from the South. But I'd say in the general sense, everybody finds what works best for that specific application of their system and they adapt it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy. I guess it's simple in concept, but even for me, it's like when I think of this, I'm thinking more of like, and it's probably just where I'm at in my personal journey, so it's not even technically fair for like the greater audience, but like um dialing in just the gear itself of climbing, what you're carrying on your back, but like, and there's a whole like camping side to this too, right? Like
Mhm.
the concept of truly being mobile, right? Like the meals and the jet boil and all the little companies and accessories that go along with even that aspect of it, especially if you go out west and you're hiking in for days or a weekend type thing. Like, man, you could just increase the amount of vendors and products and exposure just by broadening your thinking process a little bit with that aspect. Um, versus it just being always about a new platform or a new saddle. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild. The you guys, I want to shift a little bit into the next concept here. We did talk about how both of you got involved. So I would like to jump into your specific roles. I know you guys talked about the staff being able to help with what your specific techniques are, but maybe just talk a little bit about what each of you do and the value add, and maybe kind of like from leadership point of view to make sure the show runs properly. Just talk about your experiences. Maybe Martin, we'll start with you on this one.
Yep.
Yeah, so when I worked the first show, there wasn't any like quote unquote coordinator positions you could call it. So they just had a big list of staff across the board. That since changed this year. They added positions called woodsman. So no different than like an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator on a coaching staff. Kind of the same concept. So there's still Chris, Josh, and Rick that are like that the big three, or what I call the three stooges. And then the woodsmen are below that. So myself and another gentleman are the woodsmen that are in charge of the setup and demolition of the demo poles.
Mm-hmm.
So quote unquote, we're pretty much the foremen or the people up on the ladders with the impacts, the wrenches, the tools, building everything, making sure that everything's safe, and then kind of, you wouldn't even really say policing, but just educating vendors and people that are on the poles on how to do it safely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So mine's again, since I've been around since its inception, is kind of a little bit different. I was around when we were doing cash sales at the door, the first venue we ever did, all the way to fast forward to now, where like we've got full setup online, point of sale systems and all that kind of stuff rolling. And like Martin said, last year was actually the first year that I did not work any shows. My oldest son had a pretty invasive leg surgery and was immobilized for a pretty good while. And we had a 1-year-old at the time too. So my wife was like, if you leave me for it was actually going to be 12 days because 3 shows last year, she was like, we might have some issues. So I did attend the Michigan show, but I think kind of like, Martin said, I've been around for every aspect of it because prior to this season, we didn't have such specific defined roles, and so I've done pole work with setup and tear down, with educating people that came and attended on different gear, different setups. I've worked with some of the vendors on helping them get their stuff set up or getting signed in, vendor badges, all that kind of stuff, and then helping them tear down and set up and any information they need from a logistical perspective. And then outside of that, I've done everything from all our electronics management with setting up, radios and our tablets and all that kind of stuff, merchandise management, ticket booth management and setup. Really just kind of anywhere that there's a need I see and there's something that needs done. Like, Martin can attest to this. Like I was running around like a madman both shows this weekend because it was like I had this stuff that I knew I was responsible for the area that I was in. But like Saturday, I was running the archery shoot in the Midwestern show up here in Ohio, and we had a line of people outside before we were even ready to get started. So I was sitting out there trying to set up all the ticket booth stuff, and there's 15, 20 people there. Half of them are archers trying to get in for registration. The other half are trying to purchase tickets before the doors open, and so I just whipped around. I got one of them set up, and I was like, all right, let's start rolling. Like, who do we got? And so it's. I think the only thing I haven't done a whole lot with has been the stage for the seminars and stuff. But that's also kind of Rick's baby, and he's protective over it. He knows what he wants, how he wants it set up, how he wants it to roll, and he's the one that coordinates that. So I'd rather not mess with Rick's little baby that he likes to take care of, because it's the podcast, and he's crushing it with it. So there's no real reason to be involved there.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully your son's doing better, and your wife has found calm and collectiveness after a year of maybe craziness, because that's important too, right? I mean, not all of us are like Martin, where you can kind of he is a dog. He can't just 100% pick up and go, but that's important. You got to have home base in a good spot before you go do these things. That's for sure. Everyone can attest to that. This is still under the whole idea of behind the scenes and kind of growth of the show. When you guys started on this journey, everyone starts kind of in a spot where you're like, all right, then you have, hey, this would be better next year if we did these things, and then this third year would be better if we tweaked it here. What were some of the things you guys have done to allow for the growth that you've experienced? Are you doing like audience outreach? Are you doing surveys? Is it just what you guys ran into with personal issues as you were in these roles? Tyler, you'll have probably more experience on this because you've been there longer, but I'd like to hear from both of you. Just like what's some of the feedback loops that you guys do to account for the growth you've experienced?
Yeah. You want to take that, Martin?
I can start, because you can probably just go on top of whatever I come up with or go over. I think a lot of it is just everybody's personal experience. If you find a problem, find a solution. Like I told Chris and Rick and Josh at the end of the shows last year, I'm like, you guys need to find, and I literally gave them that same reference I talked about earlier, find coordinators for different stuff that they can literally just handle any problems that happen. And then if there's a problem, they can just reach out to one of you three, instead of like what we kept having happen in the PA show and the Michigan show is you'd have 3 or 4 issues that were pretty minor, and most of the staff would just try and reach out to the top 3 people. I'm like, well, that's kind of pointless and stupid. That's not efficient at all. You literally have a simple answer that's, what are we going to need to do with this, that, and the other thing? I'm like, well, if you would have read the packet that they emailed us like 2 weeks ago, that probably would have fixed the problem to begin with. But we don't really need to like harp on them for every point. And even like further beyond that, once they kind of, I think the biggest thing is, if you see a problem, give them a solid solution that's going to fix the problem. And if it does not cost a lot of money, that meme that pops up with the 2 guys with this arms thing, like, it's just, if you can come up with a solution to the problem, that's pretty much it. So I think the big thing is just, it's got to be a smart solution, though. It just can't be some harebrained idea that you just came up with after a few drinks. It's like, this is the problem. This is how we're going to fix it.
Well, it's crazy because, like, and I know Tyler, you'll jump in here too. It's just there's got to be a way you've simplified it, right? Because you don't have the growth that you've experienced, which is incredibly impressive. And as someone who will be someone that will attend it in upcoming shows and being a fan from afar, like, I've noticed just even in the digital footprint of it, right? Like, whether it's the podcast and the social content, and then having guys like Martin there, like, you feel the growth, you hear about the growth, right? You hear the energy and the excitement. Like, that only happens because you guys are doing everything right on the ground first. That's where this question comes from. So I didn't mean to jump in there, Tyler, but what's your opinion on that?
Yeah. Kind of like Martin touched on, I think one of the biggest things that helped us a ton this year with the growth we were experiencing. I mean, we kind of forecasted based on the Southern show. Like, we knew our numbers from years past, just in terms of where we've been there. We knew that we were going to have it in the same place again, and that was going to increase numbers just naturally, because word of mouth travels faster than anything else on the planet. And so the development of that, for lack of a better term, hierarchy, where you had point people to go to, with certain things in a certain area, that helped a ton. Especially too, like, when it comes to Saturday of the shows, like, the typical person you're going to get contact most as somebody who's on staff is going to be Rick. Josh is busy handling the vendors. He is the point person for all vendor stuff. Chris is media. So, like, Chris is running around getting content, interviewing people, all that kind of stuff. But outside of those two, like Rick is going to be the one to probably assist anybody who's working as a staff member the most. But when it comes to Saturday, Rick's ate up with seminars. You've got usually 3, maybe 4 time slots on Saturday where people are speaking, and Rick's got to do AV. He's got to make sure audio is good. He's got to make sure TV's working if they've got, slides and PowerPoint that they want to do or videos. So like when it
That's
comes to
stressful.
that, yeah, and you hit a window where like, like if you're a staff member and you've got, 6 to 10 people working the show for you, and your main point person is busy at the end, for the almost a full day of the entire weekend. Like Martin said, it can get really chaotic really fast. So having the point people there this year helped a ton. Just from my experience as somebody who went from like 2 3 consecutive years of really all of us running around like chickens with our head cut off to hey,
Yeah.
we've got an issue with the ticket booth, can so and so get up here? Hey, we've got an issue with whatever the case would be, can so and so get here? And that really helped. I think not only did it smooth things out a little bit from an organizational standpoint, but it also got us solutions faster to
Yeah.
where, like we didn't have 4 people all trying to do the same solution. And to the same token, we didn't have one person wondering if anybody was doing the solution, So
Yeah. Yeah.
that helps a ton. We do have customer surveys as options. There's QR codes all over the Mobile Hunter Expo booth for people
Oh,
to fill
nice.
out. The amount at which they do that, I honestly couldn't tell you. If you think about right, like you get a receipt from McDonald's or something, and they're like, "Hey, we got a survey, fill it out for a free cheeseburger or something." Like, even a free cheeseburger offer, I still don't fill out the survey, like unless it was
Yeah.
again. To the same token, too, if you think about the dynamic, and I learned this through just studying marketing and sales in general. People don't write about positive experiences. People write about negative stuff. When you go on Google reviews, a lot of your long written out reviews are somebody complaining or whining about, something that didn't go right or something they were mad about. It's very seldom does somebody genuinely step out and write something long term positive. However, what I
You have to
have
ask them to
noticed
do
is
it.
right. And what I have
Yeah.
noticed though is that if there is something that is genuinely positive as a whole, then the people as a whole will talk about that in the general
Yeah.
sense. And that's where you get that more like if you have a positive environment or a positive community, the community will actually talk about that and discuss that versus, like every year it never fails. We usually see one thing pop up on social media somewhere where, there was a guy, I don't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago. He showed up to the Southern show. The name is in the title, mobile hunting, and he was extremely angry that there were no big box blind vendors there. Like he was like, worst show I've ever been to. There were no ladder stands. There were no box blinds. Blah blah blah. I don't know what. And it was like none of that is mobile. It's all stationary equipment, stationary setups. Like, what do you kind of expect to come from that? And in that dynamic, so there's always going to be those kind of dynamics there from a survey perspective. But I think just like Martin said, every year we have a time frame post show season where we sit down as staff and we fire off ideas and hey, what went well, let's keep doing this. What didn't go well, let's try and change that. I know
Hmm.
one of the kind of semi issues we had down in the South Show was we had a kid who was unattended get up on the poles and was thank God nothing happened, but he's like a 5 6 year old kid standing on a stick that's 4 or 5 feet off the ground on concrete, and he's holding on to a gusset at the top of the pole. We've got information that says no kids are allowed on the pole. It's listed on the website, and immediately Martin and I were like, we need signs on the poles. Like we need it
Yeah.
posted right there where they're at. And so in a pinch, I came up with, just some laminated signs, for that purpose, tacked them on the poles for the Northern show. We didn't, to my knowledge at least, I never saw a child unattended on the poles. They were always kept an eye out for, watched on. And then even through that, like Martin and I were already talking about next year for a better idea for signs that have, all the other information on there. Like, we don't want mechanical devices on the poles because of, risk of improper use. And we want to make sure that, these kind of 3 to 4 main things for the poles, and just having, a better, more efficient setup from a sign perspective. That's not just, again, cheap laminated paper that was nailed to a pole.
Sure.
That looks a little better. It's easier to read and it's easier to identify. Like Martin was already spitballing ideas for that for next year. So like we're constantly in that process. I think that's what's cool about
Sounds
the
about
group
right.
of guys that, yeah. What's cool about the guys that we have is like Martin said, like we see something that could probably be done better, or we need a new solution for, and like we just start trying to figure that out. Like we start firing off ideas about that.
Well,
Yeah.
to like go on top of that, the way that I look at it is no different than our own mobile setups. Like Tyler might have an issue with 1 or 2 things, and he might just ask somebody else in the group, "Hey, do you got a solution for my tether?" "Oh yeah, did you try that stuff from Justin yet? That WLR hitch? You remove the metal. It's the same thing as a Ropeman 1, and it's a lot easier to use when it's warm, cold, anywhere in between." "Oh wow, that's pretty cool." So
Yeah.
stuff like that, and even some of the other like problems that we solved. That Southern show, I think there had to be close to 300 people waiting at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock whenever we opened.
That's crazy.
And just having 1 or 2 people like myself, I just went out front to just say, "Hey,
Start
if
flexing.
you've already bought it, if you have not bought a ticket, here's a QR code that takes you to the website to then do this, and this." And literally just probably took 90, well, I wouldn't say that much, probably like 75% of the people that probably would have been waiting in line, and you would have had to like put all the stress on the people with the iPads to manually type in all that information and saying, "Hey, do these 4 steps. This gets you into that line. It gets you in like 45 minutes to an hour quicker. It's a better overall client experience or customer experience for the end user, and it makes it a lot easier for the staff." So it was a solution that solved, it was a problem that created 4 more solutions.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That kind of, it's one of the other things on here, actually, the more hearing you guys talk about, these last items for like what I'll call continuous improvement, which is fantastic, and binding systems to allow for scalability and growth. It's the concept of evolution of your audience too. Like I imagine who showed up year 1, you probably have a lot of repeats, I'm guessing, because we're all would be those audience members too, right? We're constantly evolving our gears and looking for the next thing, and this is just an outlet for that. So why wouldn't there be other people who aren't part of the staff that also do it? And then obviously if you're having growth, you're reaching new people. So is the audience itself getting, other than a random little hiccup here and there, with a kid getting on a pole, it sounds like the majority of people are following the rules, behaving themselves, are not only just in behaviors and how people behave at shows, because that could be any show, right? The is the evolution of the audience member that you guys are going after, are they getting more technical, like the gear, as the Mobile Hunter brand evolves and matures, and the vendors and what you guys are offering and how you want to get information out to people, is the audience evolving with the efforts, in your opinion? Like, are they getting more technical and more savvy as well along the way?
I think it all depends on who you're speaking with, because to me, I noticed a lot of people at the 2 shows this year that were just getting into mobile hunting, that were kind of the traditional hang on or preset ladder stands or box blinds, or they had a private piece or a family piece that got sold and they no longer have it. Or even like one of the guys that I met and talked with at the bar for about 5 minutes, he has access to family land up in PA. I mean, he drove, I think, 6.5 hours. Him and the wife turned it into like a little getaway. And he just wanted to go out on public more to just get more opportunities and just kind of learn and grow. But then you might have the 2 or 3 guys that I spoke with at the Southern show that were no different than me and Tyler. They were probably in year like 4 or 5. And they were mainly looking for that 1 or 2 pieces of gear to just swap out that they had issues with. And it's crazy how you just ask somebody 2 or 3 questions and you're able to figure out what their problem is and give them a solution within like 3 minutes.
Yeah, you're kind of like my mobile hunting Siri. I want it to do it needs to do this.
Sell the old stuff, buy the new stuff.
And it's not necessarily, I think the turnover is nice because, right, like that that's how I got into it. So if guys are willing to flip and you can get still quality gear at a reduced price, it's a great way to get people to even take that first step to get into it. So you don't see that in a lot of other, these whatever subgenres, these submarkets of hunting always, guys and families will hang on to pieces, there's grandpa's bow or grandpa's gun. Well, you never pass that along, but I'll pass along some sticks or something, kind of a thing. Certain things have more value and meaning. I mean, we have literally an episode on our podcast where Martin talks with a gentleman named Kirk from Pennsylvania, and the whole thing is about flipping gear and how fast these guys turn over gear. So
Yep.
it's comical, and it's also educational. Like, not only just learning what not to do with like spammers in a digital age where you got to be so much more cautious in when you do it, but the idea of like, it's an okay thing to flip it. These products and these brands are in demand. Like, this is a safe thing to do,
Yeah.
Cool. I touched on this earlier. I want to squeeze this in just, and I want to hear you guys say it, not me say it, which the concept of defining mobile hunting. Just to make sure, like, I feel like most of this episode we were talking to people specifically that already are aware of who you are, but I want to talk a little bit for people that might not know what this is, and if they have an interest in adopting this style of hunting. So I want you guys to break it down, like, and what's your definition of mobile hunting, and is there a single definition that everyone goes by now, or do you still hear a lot of people kind of mess it up? Saddle hunting, mobile hunting. What is truly mobile hunting, and can we all agree on what that exactly is?
Yeah. So mobile hunting for me is going to be, there's a lot of different ways that people define it, but in the very overarching general sense for me, it's the ability to be able to move and adapt your hunt based on whatever changing conditions you're experiencing. If it's a weather shift, a wind shift, a thermal shift, if you're seeing, you're hunting a spot and you're seeing deer traffic and it's 60, 70 yards away, just out of range, and you need to make a move, mid sit or midday, having the equipment that is, lightweight enough, mobile enough and efficient enough for you to be able to do that, without any kind of other overarching circumstances. I mean, if you think about your traditional styles of hunting with the ladder stand, if you end up in a spot and the wind shifts, well, that spot's shot now. You can't hunt it. And instead of, if you're in a pinch point and you've got a ladder stand permanently set up on one side of it, or a blind, a big box blind set up on one side of it, and the deer are all moving on the other side of it for whatever reason, they're just out of range and you just have to deal with it, versus, a mobile setup is going to give you that ability to say, okay, I'm watching deer move, 40 yards outside of my range. Let me make a move that's 50 yards. And now the deer are walking through it 10 yards or 20 yards, instead of the other way around where, you're not moving a hang on ladder stand that's, 80, 90 pounds that takes 3 people to set up in order to make your hunt, work for you. And so it truly gives you that ability to just to be more dynamic based on situations and changes. We've all heard the stories of guys being like, oh, my hunt was great, then the wind shifted and I had to leave, versus, the mobile guy is going to say, my hunt was going well, the wind shifted, and so I moved and I hunted the rest of the day. And that might be what, gets you into where the deer are going to be. It might be what gets you the opportunity at that deer when that wind shifts. And, one of the biggest dynamics that we talk about within the hunting world is how, as winds change and winds shift, deer in general, especially bucks, will like shift their bedding to different areas. And so they're going to get up on their feet and move to where they feel safer. Well, if you're in a ladder stand and the wind shifts and you leave, you're going to miss that move, versus a mobile setup gives you the ability to do it.
Yeah. I just had this talk with my brother. He hunts with his father-in-law, and they have a lease in, I'll just call it Shawano County, and they've let me hunt it, and it's fantastic land, but they sit in ladders. And even he is like, tell me more about this mobile hunting. He's like, the amount of deer, like, that I see that I can't reach with my bow, kind of a thing. And he's been successful as a bow hunter. He got into hunting later in life, but I'm like, dude, just stop. You got to embrace it. Like, I'll find people to hook you up with gear. Like, so that's where we're at. He hasn't fully committed to it yet, but we'll get him hooked.
I've used the pressure standpoint too, because I share a small property with my dad and my brother, and I live about 40 minutes from it. They live 10 minutes from it, and so it's very easy for them to just jump out there all the time. And the kind of cool part, and I don't know if it's maniacal or not, but there's times where like I'll roll out there in the first part of the season, I'll hunt that ladder stand that we've had set up there for a while. But once I know that they've been out there for a month just hammering it, I run out there with my saddle and I go into a spot that they genuinely can't hunt because there's not a stand hanging there for them to hunt. And I'm getting away from the pressure that they're going to have to be stuck with, just by, again, having the mobile setup.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bart, I wasn't sure. I mean, I imagine there's a lot of that you agree with, but did you have your own amendment to that from a mobile hunter perspective?
I would just add on one little tip. It gives you the ability to get on fresh signs. So you're not limited on just hanging a preset somewhere. I mean, obviously presets work, but the ability that you can literally carry whatever you need with you, if that's a hang-on setup, a one stick, a platform, I mean, SRT, whatever you want to build from your Lego set, you can make it work. And then it gives you the ability to, like Tyler's point, you could be set up on one side. So you could be on one side of the drainage and then all of a sudden, cool, you got the best wind to be on the head of that drainage. Well, what's going to happen when the thermals switch? You probably want to get down and go to the other side. It gives you the ability that you're not just stuck in one spot. Or like even too, I've heard of people in the rut that they'll go to one spot in the morning until like a certain time, and then they'll switch just based off of historical data or like information that they've gained from either being on stand or from other people that were on those stand positions. It gives you a lot more flexibility to be more efficient and increase your odds of success. Because even for me, the biggest buck that I've ever shot was literally from summer scouting, where I could figure out where the doe were bedding at that point. That I literally went in on a move at like 2:00 in the afternoon, and that deer was dead at 5:30. He was the only deer that I saw, but I happened to just set up with the perfect wind, downwind. He ended up coming down from it, and what I later found out that I didn't know is there was probably 6 scrapes on a trail that it's a normal 2-track trail that we use for entry and exit for hauling a deer out. Well, that thing was loaded. So mainly when I was walking in, I just found a few rubs that were nothing crazy or nothing big. But I'm like, well, I'm just going to stop here because this makes sense. And I can always move in a little bit further the next day. But I didn't need to. And thankfully, I was able to then go back, get my cousin, and then haul the deer out. And then I just turned into a guide.
Love that. It's the ultimate modularity mobility system, right? Like maybe some other systems give you one of those things, but not all of those abilities: flexibility, modularity, mobility. I just was the reason why I got rid of everything else, and it took a lot of pressure off my need to necessarily own my own land. Now it's like I have access to some family land, and then I have friends like Martin, and then public and stuff like that. It's like now it's not that it's still not a goal of mine, but now that I know I have this confidence, right? Like you said, I can get into less pressured areas, the places that no one else was going to hike to or get to. Like I'm not afraid of those things, or I'm not overwhelmed by those things anymore. Like that's my target. That's what I'm dropping a pin on X. I'm going to go explore it now versus I never would have done that before, which is fun. I like that challenge.
You touched on something like real subtly there where you talk about like other people's land. I think one of the coolest things ever is like when I, have the privilege to get invited to hunt somewhere else on somebody else's property, there's never the conversation of like, what do you need me to set up for you? Or let me see if I've got a set for you. Like a couple of years ago, I got drawn for Upper Peninsula Michigan bear tag, and the guy that I was going up there who I knew had some property and was going to help me out with the hunt, he asked me, he was like, do you want to hunt out of a stand? Do you want to hunt out of a blind? Are you gun? Are you bow? And I said, I'm hunting bow. I've got my own setup. You just show me, essentially where you're running sights at, and like, I'll figure it out. And he's like, well, some of our stuff's only set up for gun. And I'm like, are there trees nearby? And he was like, well, yeah. And I was like, don't worry about it. And when I showed up and showed him the setup I was running, he was like, holy crap. Yeah, you can get into whatever we've got here. I was like, yeah, I could hunt your gun spots if you really want it, if I wanted to. Like that dynamic of, Martin said it too earlier. You take your whole system wherever you want to go. Like it becomes weirdly, like, for lack of better terms, like one with you and you're one with it. And if you want to go hunt, guess what? You take your gear and you hunt.
Yeah. I'll even add on to that, because 100% to that. And it's not even just the ability to get in when you hit the woods. Like everything that I have for my mobile hunting, I mean, minus like heavy, bulky clothes, might be in a different like scent bag or something. But my stick, saddle, everything is in like a Remington tote. And if Martin's like, "Hey man, shut down early. Can you do that? Let's go hunt this public spot." I just grab that bin, throw it in the back of the car. Like everything, it's so convenient like that. I don't have to worry about it. In fact, when it gets actually a little cooler and you're not worried about like, something melting in your car, like it just stays in there.
Yep.
So I'm just always ready. Or heaven forbid I'm between client meetings and I drive by a spot and I've got 2 or 3 hours, which doesn't happen that often, but I'm also not going to deny that it hasn't happened. Right. When you drive, you're near one of your spots. I'll just run up to something that maybe I pre-marked in the past. Like it's kind of crazy,
Oh yeah.
And again, I don't know of any other setup that would allow me to do that, or that I'm interested in even exploring, but I just not aware of anything else that allows you to give that sort of ability to function in such a way. Yeah, I was in similar experience to you with like the private land. Like the land I grew up hunting on, I was able to get back on it after more than 10 years of a hiatus from it. And, my uncle and cousins are like, "Hey man, your old childhood stands back in there." And I'm just like, fuck that. Like it was on the edge. I'm like, you guys, I've evolved,
Yeah.
like I'm going up in the tree and I'm hunting the edge. You guys can go back into the cedar swamp, have fun,
Yep.
which is really cool to say. And even they were like, even one of my cousins is like, "Yeah, I'm going to have to try that out." So it's fun when you can kind of imprint on people as they see how you're just more flexible and you can play the terrain better. So it's super cool. I want to talk about things that motivated you guys of what you saw at the show. Specifically, Martin, you'll help me with this because you're always better, but I'm interested in maybe the top 3 products that specifically caught your attention, whether it was something you want to add to your bag or your setup, your flow, or just things that you thought might make an impact on the industry, whether or not you are going to adopt it or not. I wouldn't necessarily call it a vendor standout per se, because it could just be a specific product or even a technology that wouldn't be tied to a specific vendor. But I'm just curious, there's got to be at least, if there could be just one thing, that's even better, but I imagine there's a lot of things, which is why I'm going with 3. So I don't care who goes first here, but I'm very curious what jumped out to you guys the most at either show or even one of the shows. I won't overly define it. Who wants to go first on this one?
I'm gonna let Martin go because I think you got to see a little bit more just because of me having to run the archery range on Saturday and different things.
Yeah.
Like I think you got
I'll
to
go
see
first,
a lot
but
more.
I think there's a product that you bought at the Southern show that was the big hit at any of the shows that you can talk about. For me, for the top 3 pieces of gear, not really personally for what I would add to my kit, in no specific order, I would say the top 3 would be the kunai platform from Timber Ninja. The fact that you're able to get I don't even call it a hybrid setup because they don't have the seat or the knee pad for it yet. It's just an oversized platform at this point. But the fact that it folds down to 1 inch and it's like 4 pounds, 10 ounces, something like that would be phenomenal for pretty much anybody, any time of the year, especially. And it's mainly designed for people that are like the mountains, the hill country, the big woods-esque thing. But even for somebody who's hunting in like farm country, the ability that you literally have something that's like a 20 by 16 platform that you can then put on pretty much any tree. So even if you've got a really goofy lean, the way that just to kind of, if anybody's listening to this, you're probably better off trying to like jump on YouTube and find a video. But what it is
We can add a link.
Strap that goes around the tree, and then you tighten that rope. And then there's a kickstand that then you can adjust however you're going to angle your pitch. So mainly you've got the kickstand that will go into the tree. So mainly you get the rope goes around the tree. And once that's tight, you pick it up, you bring it down, you bring it back up, and then you kick the leg into the tree. And Gunner, one of the people that works for Timber Ninja, was trying to get it off, or we were testing side pressure on it, and we were literally like jumping, like not completely jumping, like we're getting like feet off of the side, but we were getting like inches off of the side, and almost the whole pole setup was moving. That's how rock solid that setup is. And mind you, this is on telephone poles that are treated. This isn't like just a regular bark tree. That's one of them.
Okay.
Another product, and I'm only going to stick with one brand, like one product from one company. The other one that I would say would be the Saber Saw. That's one that I personally picked up for my kit. I had a Silky Saw before, which was phenomenal. But the fact with the Saber Saw, you can literally find a branch and now you turn it into a pole saw.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's small, it doesn't take up a ton of space. The third product that I thought was cool, I'd probably say what Tyler talked about earlier, the field to fuel products. The fact that you can heat it up if you want to, but you don't need to. So the fact that you can literally be on stand, open up a little bag, and you're going to get a lot of the nutrients and protein and stuff that you need to sustain a hunt without having to heat anything. Now, don't get me wrong, it'd be nice to be able to boil it or heat it up a little bit better so you had more warmth to your core. But even like the 3 or 4 options that they had for like the soup stuff, I'm more excited for the little flavor packs or whatever those things are. Just even something like that to be able to have, say, for example, in your food bag for even just an afternoon hunt, or if it's an all-day rut hunt. Oh, cool, let's crack this thing open, and then we're going to get X for vitamins, minerals, all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I mean, they're not going to be cheap. You're going to spend probably $5 to $6 for one of those things. But the fact that you're able to get a lot of the nutrients and energy that you need to be able to sustain a hunt without having to like crush little Debbie's or like be like Tyler Sparks or Josh, who's like one of these pumpkin spice pimps that just like snorts stuff right off the Starbucks can.
Is that a new name tag? A spice pimp? Is that an actual job someone can
Spice pimp? That's gonna. I might have to change Josh's name in our thread.
Yeah, because it was so funny. So just for backstory on it, me and Tyler were on a mission to help people load a pool in that ended up being used for kayak demos at the Midwestern show. Well, the so-called goose chase ended up with us going to a local gas station near Chris's house to pick up chicken. Well, Crackhead McGee over here found that they had the Little Debbie's pumpkin spice thing, so he bought 2 boxes of them, and he kept passing them to Josh like they were drug deals. Here's the baggie, take it.
He's not lying. I literally, at one point, he was standing there talking to a vendor, and I was running an errand for Rick. And I went back to the Mobile Hunter booth. I grabbed something out of our toolbox over there, and I had thrown like 6 or 7 of them in there as like little, I was like a diabetic with like my little emergency sugar snack or something. And I literally grabbed 2 of them. I shut the drawer. As I'm passing Josh while he's talking to a vendor, I just gave him like a little pat on the chest, and I dropped it, and he caught it, and he went, "Ooh, thanks!" You know, like the whole weekend we were just. I made
sure that scene. It's like that scene from The Office where they train Dwight every time they power up and down the laptop. He like wants the mint, you know?
Yep. Oh yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh, and it's so fascinating too. Like, you know, we joke because I have not joined Martin on it. Not that I'm not into health, but Martin's done the whole blood work thing, like what his body is like rejects versus what it digests, which is becoming more and more popular as I think people kind of recommit to just healthier lifestyles and stuff. And it's funny because when you get into like hunting in general, well, like you could just be the guy that wears like a black sweatshirt, goes to like a heated, you know, enclosed blind and eats chips all day kind of a thing. Or you could be the person who hikes in several miles, climbs several trees, right? Like you said, almost like a CrossFit, you know, body type and mindset. So yeah, you know what? Like I'd be lying if I said I hadn't brought the Nutter Butters because that's an OG snack for me. You know, ironically enough, I don't know what you guys have for like your gas stations. It's like a known like thing in Wisconsin that everyone gets all excited about, Quick Trips. And Martin did a whole episode on, you know, what's in your bag type thing, and Quick Trip got not involved with us, but like reposted it, and that piece of content, like as goofy as it was, like what are you stopping for on your way out? Like that got everyone super jazzed and like started like, you know, almost like World War III. It was like Ford versus Chevy type conversations on what snacks we're putting in your bag. It's like But I do think there's a space too, because even other people we help, like First Form and Mountain Ops and all these kind of like nutrient drinks, and trying to just like, well, I spend all this time outside of hunting. Why would I now suddenly cheat and like have any gains that I made to even get ready for hunting? Plus, I think you have influencers like the Cameron Haynes of the world that like train just to go do that kind of stuff. You know, like they almost make the workout more about it. So I could be wrong, but like either the algorithms got me dialed in and keep serving me that stuff, or that really is a growing movement. You know, and it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I hear stuff like the field of fuel, even though I'm not aware of them yet, that totally passes the sniff test as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
All right, Tyler, what about you, man? What's your 3?
Transparently, I'm drawing a blank on what I bought at the South Show because it's all been a whirlwind. So, Martin, would you mind reminding me what I got at the South Show?
Was it something Latitude was
Yeah.
selling?
Okay, so first, like I guess overarching favorite thing was transparently the wild line tether. I know we've talked about it a handful of times. We've mentioned it a handful of times, but coming from somebody who started, way back when ropes were 10 millimeters and stiff and you couldn't pack them and they were a pain and, you had all the metal on them and all that kind of stuff. From that to different types of hitches that worked a little bit better, but still were kind of a pain to use, to now where, I'm running a rope that's fairly minimal. It packs way better. There's no metal on it whatsoever, outside of a carabiner that, you're going to clip in with on your bridge. And having one-handed adjustment both up and down with, like one of the worst things really about a lot of the other hitches is they bite so hard that after you sit on them for a while and that weight's been bearing down on them, like they're a pain in the butt to break loose. And what's really cool about his WLR hitch is, it doesn't matter if you're on a 2-hour hunt or a 10-hour hunt, you can literally take 2 fingers just above the hitch and barely apply any pressure, and that sucker will break and allow you to move it. And it will grab just as hard as a Prusik or a Prusik when you need it to. So that's
Crazy.
I'm excited for that to actually get it out in the field and use it for a full season. I'm messing around with it here in the yard. Actually, the day I got home from the Southern show, I came in and was putting all that stuff here in the garage, and I pulled that out and hung from the rafter in my garage because I wanted to see just how, like, with my full weight hanging straight down vertically on it, how, sensitive it would be. And it was the exact same. So definitely that. My second one, I'm actually using it right now to hold my phone for this. So I was going to show it to you guys, and then I was like, wait a minute, I'm using it. So the one thing that gets talked about a lot within mobile hunting as well, people are getting more into filming, whether it be for content creation, for YouTube, TikTok, their own personal enjoyment and memories, whatever the case may be. A lot of people are doing that. And one of the hugest misconceptions surrounding self-filming hunts is that you need a $500 to $1,000 camera setup with a lens and external batteries and all this other stuff to film your hunts. And it just flat out isn't true. Most versions of your Galaxy phones and your iPhones that are Pro or Pro Maxes are going to have camera capabilities that are just as good as, a $500 camera setup with, a cheap market lens. And so one of the things that I've actually been telling people a lot within a couple different pages on Facebook lately, they're asking, hey, I want to get into filming. What's a cheap budget setup that I can run? And or they're asking, what fluid heads are you guys using for your phones? And to this day, the only one that I personally know of that works for phone filming the best is the Genesis 3D fluid head. And then the reason being is because the phone holder is actually built into the handle of the fluid head. So you automatically right there are basically eliminating an extra piece of gear you have to fiddle with or carry or try and attach to a fluid head in the dark when you're trying to find, that little tiny threaded screw bolt in there and line it all up and it's pitch black or it's barely lit. The nice thing is, like as we sit right now, I've got the fluid head sitting on top of a tripod and I've got my phone in the mount facing me. Like it's
That's awesome.
It's super minimalist. It's very lightweight. I believe Austin 3D prints the majority of it. It has a bubble level on it, so you can tell if everything's level, regardless of what camera arm you're running it on. It does have a fairly oversized knob for your pan adjustment tension, and then it has a lever knob for your tilt adjust tension. I mean, it is really awesome. And then it also actually has a place where it can hold a smaller camera or camcorder if that's something you're wanting to run, like a small mirrorless Sony ZV-10 or whatever. You can do that. I actually know a handful of guys too. What they do with it is they put their phone in the phone mount, and then they'll take a GoPro or an Insta360 or some type of action camera, and they'll actually screw it into the main camera spot directly in front of their phone. And now you're running two cameras off the same fluid head, which is really cool and convenient.
Yeah.
Great option for turkey hunting when turkey season rolls around. And then so Martin mentioned the third one's kind of a tie toss up for me, but since we're talking primarily deer and deer hunting, getting close to deer season, I got to go with the Method 3. As somebody who ran the Method 1 and then turned around and ran the Method 2, kind of like you were talking with Martin, I actually gave my Method 2 away to somebody that was wanting to get into it, didn't want to spend a ton of money. I said, you know what, hey, I got a saddle, try it out. If you like it, keep it. Don't pay me anything for it. And from the Method 1 to the Method 2, some things got fixed. Comfort got better, some features got better. But there was still a lot left for me personally that I wanted to see get fixed. And I don't know if I can fully attribute it to the acquisition of Matt Tompkins from TX5, but man, did he come in with his inspiration and his genius and just overhaul the thing. And they came out with the Method 3, and it dropped 2 days before the Southern show. I was extremely excited to sit in it as somebody who's hunted out of the Methods over the years. They've, for me personally, always been more comfortable than a lot of the other ones I've tried, especially somebody who's skinnier, has bonier hips, deals with hip pinch a lot in every single panel I've sat in. I was really excited to sit in it. Once I realized how all of the features I wanted fixed from the 1 and 2 got fixed with the 3, it was really hard for me to walk away from it. And I didn't need a new saddle. It was one of those things where I wasn't looking to upgrade it. But when I sat in it, I realized I needed an upgrade. And so I was like, you know what? I'm taking this home. This one's coming home with me. I'm not, I was like, and the other thing too is, there was a lot of people coming in specifically to see that. So that's another cool thing from a vendor perspective. If you had an event to drop a new product to debut a product, one of these shows would be a very prime way to do so, just because of the reason that, we talk about it a lot, but your bigger level shows are drawing in tons and tons of people, and you might only have a small percentage of those people who are actually interested in that company or that product or that style of hunting. And what we've done, and what a lot of our vendors understand, is we've taken that small percentage and we put them all in the same room. So rather than you having to sift through the masses to find your audience, we took your target audience and put them in the same 4 walls. Now you get to actually effectively talk about your product, talk about your tips and tactics, what makes it better or worse or different, or what's changed to people that genuinely actually care and have an interest versus, your folks who were just kind of passing by your booth at a bigger show.
Absolutely.
So yeah, those 3 products. Honorable mention is the Hawk Turkey Vantage Scope. If you're into turkey hunting and you're like me, where seeing at a distance isn't necessarily your strong suit, I got a chance to test it out finally there. I was able to run it from 1 power all the way to 4 power, and it was another one where thankfully my dad was at the Ohio show where Hawk was, and he wanted a new rangefinder, and I think Martin saw this happen, but I was over working demo polls that morning, and about an hour after the show started, I turned around and my dad tapped me on the shoulder and handed me a shopping bag with the scope in it and said, "Hey, Merry Christmas." And I was like, what? And he goes, "Merry Christmas." I'm like, "Dad," I know the price of that. And he goes, "Yeah, but I never know what to get you for Christmas because all of it's at these freaking shows and I don't shop online. So here's your Christmas gift." I was like, "Don't buy me anything else." The rest of the year.
It's awesome.
That was kind of nice.
That's cool
So
though.
invite your parents to it too. You might get
Yeah.
a new present.
Yeah, that was
That's so
pretty
cool.
from my perspective. I'm like, what is this? Another drug deal going on right here? But now it's dad and son. Is he
It wasn't
kingpin?
it wasn't a
More
scope.
pastries.
That sucker was loaded with pumpkin spice oatmeal cream pies. That's what was in there.
No, that wasn't even the oatmeal cream pies. That was even better stuff. Don't let
That's so
kids do that.
funny. So I mean, like, it sounds like you guys are actually, well, Martin, I think the only thing then your list is you actually got the saber saw and you said you're going to use it, but it sounds like both of you have stuff that you're actually going to implement and use this season already. Is that accurate?
Yeah, 100%. And even like as we're doing this podcast, I'm messaging Justin's wife to figure out the price of his Featherlight rappel system because he's got the Obsidian with his 8 mil, which is a Sonai, but then he's got the Featherlight one, which has that double soft shackle, so you don't even need the Notch V3 Quickie. You can literally just undo that to do the climb. But what I'm probably going to do is still use the Notch V3 Quickie for the way up, and then I can literally just disconnect everything and then just put it in the pouch, or I can run it either way. But to me, it's just the ability to lose more metal is less noise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. All right, guys, dude, we're coming into the home stretch here, and you guys have been giving awesome answers and tips and just, insight into products. If we've got everyone at this stage in the podcast, they're going to want to know what's next. Like, what are you guys working on? What's are you doing any other shows or any other brands or products you're working with? Are you on any other podcasts? Where can, and then in addition to that, where can people go to get in touch with you or find out more specifically about the Mobile Hunter Show? Or if they have any questions for you guys on products or anything like that, where can they get in touch? Tyler, let's start with you.
Yeah. So without giving away too many trade secrets or inner workings there, we're looking at probably doubling growth again next year. I think that's a big goal for us in terms of where can they find and hear more about. The Mobile Hunter Facebook page is run by our core group of guys. We talk about it a lot in that page. There is obviously the Mobile Hunter Expo Facebook page. There's an Instagram page for that as well. And then I believe we actually have a TikTok that is Mobile Hunter Expo. And then we also have a YouTube that is the Mobile Hunter. And so those would be your primary ways, to find out about the shows. I know moving into next year, we're planning on going back to Dalton again. And I believe we're going to be doing Ohio again. I think it's going to be Wilmington at the same location. But I haven't heard any confirmation about that yet, but I think we're going to try and run that home. And I know Chris is really wanting to continue the archery shoot that we did this year for the first time. It was a really big success. We had a lot, pretty good turnout for it. I think we were close to 50% of the slots that we had for the archery shoot. So I think we're going to try and do our best to keep that, increase prizes, increase different dynamics of that. We've already talked about building out the range a little bit better in terms of getting some scenery stuff in there. So we're gonna have some trees set up, maybe some rocks and different things of that nature.
Oh, nice.
Just try and get a different dynamic in there, make it more challenging in a couple different ways and make it more fun and interesting versus just standing on a line and shooting it at foam. So really excited to see how that plays out, especially with being involved and helping coordinate that for the first year.
Very cool. That sounds awesome. Yeah. Well, that'll probably be the one that I need to show up to then.
Hey,
maybe I'll have my new bow dialed in by that point.
As long as you don't go wrecking our plywood. We had I don't know if you saw or not. So there's a really cool guy. He shoots some 3D and I used to shoot 3D for a handful of years for ASA and whatnot. And he and I go back and forth all the time, giving each other flack. And so I was excited to see him show up to shoot that morning. And very first arrow off the very first line of the morning at 9 a.m., he sailed one right over a target, right into the back plywood, and it echoed through the whole venue hall. I ran up to check the arrow, make sure it didn't go all the way through, and I turn around and I see him walking up, and we locked eyes, and he just knew. He was like, I'm not hiding from this. And I made him stop for a picture. I made sure that we knew exactly who it was. And then a couple days after the show, I was actually we were talking about it in our staff thread, and I went back and realized that I had actually recorded that and I had it on video. So edited it out, put a little post up on the Facebook page and everything.
I'll check that out.
It was pretty comical, and he's a good guy. He's a great sport. Awesome dude. I'm gonna probably end up seeing him tomorrow for a little bit. But that was a lot of fun. So as long as you keep it out of the plywood, keep it in the foam, we should be all right.
I'll do what I can. There's a video that's going viral. It's like it's like in the evening, dusk, and it's like a whole line of archers, and they're all shooting it like in an elk 3D target, and they all have like the lit up nocks.
Yep.
Right, and it looks so cool, but no one talks about the person at the end that just sends one like 30 feet over.
Yep.
And I'm like, no one's going to talk about that guy.
There's Jared, the one guy that sent it.
Everyone's like, look how cool it is. I'm like, seriously, no one's going to talk about the dude that just intentionally held off and launched it over the top. It's just so ridiculous. Well, I love all that, and that's awesome. We'll make sure we get handles out here so people can easily in the descriptions of the video and whatnot can go over to your channels to learn more information and follow along and start planning out for future shows, whatever's available for them to start getting that in their calendars. Martin, I imagine at this point in the game you'll still be rolling with these guys on future shows. I know you mentioned you got another show coming up. ATA, is that accurate?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we're going to have a booth at ATA. I don't know if we've done much thought process on the booth setup, but I know that we'll be at ATA. I liked what Tyler said. I know we're going to do the Southern show, the Ohio show. I think it's going to be pretty much the same weekends as the ones we had this year. Beyond that, I think the big thing is just kind of working off what we had already built thus far and just coming up with a better user experience, especially for pre-sales or people that are looking to buy tickets once they show up to the venues. Just coming up with better systems. Like the way that I look at it is no different than our mobile hunting setups. We're always going to tweak and change stuff. Some stuff we might completely remove from the setup just because it's irrelevant. It's no different than like me swapping out from 4 sticks to a 1 stick. Not that the 1 stick is the end all be all, but at some point I might go back to that. So it's just kind of minor adjustments here or there to kind of make things more efficient and fluid. The gear side of working on stuff, I am not able to talk about anything that I'm working on or what I might be working on this fall until we get to that point.
Loose lip sync strips, huh?
I don't know what you're talking about, Bob. But
that's right.
Fact, I'm about
force people to come back.
Fun fact: I'm about to be the proud new owner of a new rappel setup in about 10 minutes.
Hey, let's go.
Okay. Congrats. The
crackhead
one, it's actually I didn't even think about this at first, but hearing you guys kind of talk about it too, and no promises, but there's several brands through Geared Up North and some other teams that we help with, everything from products that are definitely fit within the mobile space, but not directly tied to perhaps being in a saddle, that I think, as you guys grow and continue to look for other companies and brands that we can maybe help bring to the table. So at some point, as these things continue to evolve, we might have to sit down and I know I've name dropped your specific show with some of these other people, like even at iCast and some of these other fishing shows, but also are more like PR media people, and then getting even some of their names where they cross over into the hunting space. So I know pretty soon here everyone's going to start focusing on actual hunting, but we'll find time to regroup and help you guys continue to grow it, because it's been nothing short of amazing kind of watching, at least from my point of view. And I know Martin's had nothing but positive things to say. We gave everyone opportunities where they can go to get in touch with you guys. This is kind of our shout out, man. We talked about awesome gear, awesome brands, growth, how you guys even set yourself up for success, and what you're doing to keep growing things. This is kind of our last chance. If there's anything in the back of your mind, I guess more specifically, any person or team or people that you want to give a shout out to, this would be the time to do it.
Yeah. I guess like just the two things I'd like to say, one thing that we're kind of focusing on, and again, it's another one of the cause and purpose behind the Mobile Hunter Expo. There's a lot of division that goes through the hunting community in general, but even within the mobile hunting community, you know, like there's so many subgenres, there's so many methods, there's so many intricacies and things that you can do with your own personal setup. And so there is truthfully in no way, shape, or form one thing that is better, or is worse, or is the end all be all, like Martin said, to any of it. You know, everybody's got their system that works. You know, I joked around with a person that was asking me about the Latitude saddle at the Ohio show. You know, he kind of asked me, he goes, you know, obviously you're working for the staff, so you're unbiased. Like, what's your setup? And probably the most freeing thing I would say in the world of, you know, oversaturated pro staff kind of dynamic was being able to genuinely look at him and tell him of like 6 different companies whose gear I run.
Yeah.
And having that dynamic to where, you know, again, you still are gonna have your, you know, for lack of better terms, your fanboys that they are brand loyal till they die and they won't run anything else for whatever reason. And again, that's their prerogative. If that's what they want to do, cool. But the dynamic and ability to truly find the one thing that a company does best and add that to your system if it fits and makes sense for you. You know, like Martin's talking about one sticking right now is like his jam. A one sticking for 3 seasons was my jam. And I ended up going to 2 sticks with 8ers. And now that's my jam. It might change again, you know, as I get down the road, but like I'm never going to knock somebody for doing something different than I am in this world. And I think that's something that we need to focus on a lot across the board. And then shout out wise, like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm blowing smoke, but truthfully, like the amount of work that Christopher Leppert, Josh Luck, and Rick Cates do behind the scenes that nobody knows about, nobody sees, nobody hears about. There's even as somebody who's in constant communication with them, like we are, there's still things that the 3 of them do for the show, for the podcast, for the growth of everything that we don't even see. I've had brief, very, very brief conversations with Christopher Leppert on what his day-to-day looks like. And transparently, I want no part of it. Like the amount of traffic that his phone handles on a daily basis and the amount of traffic that his brain handles from a, you know, a content perspective and a business perspective and, you know, future thinking, but also past reflection. It would crash the server of the brain of your average everyday person to think about what they do. It does to me about once every 2 to 3 months, you know.
Yeah.
Like he literally told me like a week ago, I got a picture of a great buck on camera. I sent it to Chris. He didn't reply. And then I went to send something back to him and I was like, oh no, wait, it's 5 days for the expo. He's not responding to anybody like right now that's not expo related. So I dropped it. Yeah. Was like, you know what, I'll talk to him after the show. Like it's pretty phenomenal what they've done.
Yeah. I've even met them. Mad respect. I mean, like I spent most of my career has been in corporate America and tied to a lot of large events in the manufacturing and consumer electronics space. And like, it is not for the faint of heart, you know, like, everyone sees it at the end result, kind of how we're talking about it here. And yeah, like I said, if you aren't part of a team, like what you guys are, and you even get exposure to it, and man, it is crazy what goes into these things to get them to a level that everyone gets to enjoy them the way that they do. And, you know, me personally, and I know you two would say the same thing, hats off to those guys and even to yourselves and the rest of the crew. I don't know who they are, but, you know, maybe we'll meet them someday. But well done to both of you and the leadership and everyone else. Cause like I said, we touched on this earlier in the podcast, like you don't have the kind of growth and brand recognition that you guys have had year over year without you guys putting in the time and energy. So thanks for doing that for our space. Cause you know, a lot of what we have is probably influenced and inspired by even having outlets and places to go promote and sell these awesome products and innovate and stuff like that. So that would not, maybe it would happen without the show, but it definitely would not be where it's at without you guys kind of making an influence and creating space for that to happen. So thank you for that. Martin, stop barking, dude.
Well, we are in Milwaukee.
Martin, this is your chance, man. Do you want to give anyone a plug here quick before we do a sign off?
No, I think the big shout out, obviously, what Tyler said is that the amount of work that goes into putting on the shows, but even just the amount of people and the staff that we had the last two events to have everything run as smooth as it did without really any sort of egos on the team made it. I think the big thing was just that everybody was selfless, no different than like what Tyler was doing was setting up radios, even though that wasn't technically his woodsman position, or like myself on Saturday going out to make sure that everything was running smoothly, or we're able to kind of like reduce the flow, like, or if we're just standing around and a vendor needs help setting up poles, just kind of like that selfless attitude that the whole team adheres on and runs off of is, I think, the big reason why a lot of that atmosphere and that energy is how it is. It's just that tone that's set by the actual staff itself is, to me, like, it's cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a good reminder. Tyler touched on it too, and the keep the community alive. And part of that is setting standards and expectations, right? It's too easy for keyboard warriors to rip everyone down. And this doesn't grow the way it does if you don't have people who are willing to be mentors and coaches. And, you need to have a sense of humor about it, because there are moments where you will embarrass yourself, and that you got to be okay with that and be willing to learn and grow. And some of that comes with failure, but no one's going to want to get back in and do it if you're constantly being ripped on, which is all too common in society this day and age. So yeah, way to keep the community strong and set the standard, you guys, because like someone needs to be a leader in every space, and I think you guys are doing a good job of that. And the team behaving that way with each other, people are watching and paying attention. So keep that up, and no doubt you'll continue to have success. We are coming to the end here, man. I thank you both for your time, not only just in the shows, but jumping on this podcast tonight. We'll do our best to get names and links out to everything we talked about. We've covered a lot. We'll do justice to get everyone back pointing and looking at Mobile Hunters Expo, and we'll stay in touch, and maybe we can get more of you guys on, as we get through the hunting season. Maybe you guys will have some success getting some time in the tree yourselves, and just keep giving you guys more credit and more eyeballs, man. Everyone needs those views. So thank you so much for your time, and have a good night.
Thanks, man.
Later.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Geared Up North. The adventure is far from over. If you're searching for more epic excursions, gear reviews, and insider insights, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Geared Up North. Visit gearedupnorth.com for more information, and don't forget our latest episodes are available wherever you get your podcasts.